Hello and welcome to the Bubb Report. Last week, the report covered the vexing issue of gender-based violence in Grenada, and our panel of experts, who also shared their lived experiences on the subject, unpacked the many layers and nuances around this issue that helps make sense of where we are and where we need to be as a society. This week, we continue the conversation on gender-based violence. We will use this week's program to highlight the positive role of fathers as mentors and leaders in the English-speaking Caribbean. According to a recent report from the Economic Commission of Latin America and the Caribbean, gender systems in the region reproduce ideals of male domination in women's lives and the harms they cause. At the same time, as they privilege men, however, they also create unrealistic and toxic demands and expectations that could also harm men. Both women and men have a role to play in actively advancing gender equality in order to change the unequal power relations created and maintained by these gender systems. So says the report. Also on this week's episode, we discuss the ongoing impasse around unvaccinated SGU employees who last week were banned from entering the campus because of the university's policy mandating that all faculty, staff, and students be inoculated against COVID-19 in preparation for the school's return to in-person learning for the new 2021 to 2022 academic year. We discussed the legal and constitutional implications of this standoff with the relevant parties. The Bubb Report wants to also acknowledge and remember the deceased women who were tragically killed in the June 19, 1980 bomb blast at the Queen's Park in St. George's: Bernadette Bailey, Loris Humphrey, and Lauren Phillip. The rally was organized by the People's Revolutionary Government to remember trade unionist Grenadian Trinidadian Uriah Buzz Butler and Alistair Strawn, a young NJM activist murdered by the Eric Gary Mungus Gang in 1977. 97 people were injured that day, a vast majority of whom were women and young girls. We also send our solidarity to one of the survivors of this Cold War event, Jackie Bailey, who for the first time shared her first-person account of what unfolded on that fateful day 41 years ago. We welcome our guests: Francis Urias Peters, playwright; Aruna Neptune, broadcaster; attorney Ruggles Ferguson; former risk intervention specialist Dr. Terence Walters; Omar Rodriguez of the Belize City Council; and Senator Andre Lewis, the Labour representative in the Grenada Senate. And we now have the pleasure of introducing our host for today's episode, Kitaka Mawuto. We thank you for joining us.
Wherever you are, welcome to the Bubb Report. I am your host today, Kitaka Mawuto, filling in for Dr. Kellan Bubb. Kellan has been working very hard with the Bubb Report over the last couple months, and he deserves a holiday. So the Bubb Report team decided to, give him some time off to enjoy, the fruits of his labor and to celebrate even his recent doctoral degree. So we thank you, Kellan, for all the hard work you have done with the Bubb Report, and we hope you're enjoying Costa Rica, and we hope to have you return to us in good faith. Today, I want to say, first of all, Happy Father's Day to all the fathers all over the world, and specifically my father as well, and all the fathers who have played their roles to the highest of honor, and even those who haven't. We also, wish you Happy Father's Day. And today we have a very interesting conversation. Looking at the state of our men in the Caribbean, looking at how we can move from where we are in terms of improving the quality and the quality of fathers we have in our society. And as well, today we're going to be jumping into the SGU impasse. We have a very capable lineup of guests today, and we're going to jump right into it. First off, COVID-19 has turned the world upside down. I mean, from lockdowns to quarantine, no carnival, Zoom meetings, PCR tests, and no COVID vaccination. What we have considered as normal for the last 2 years all transformed drastically before our eyes. And for the first segment today, we welcome two gentlemen to discuss the current issue of industrial impasse within the St. George's University and the Technical Allied Workers Union. So now, like, I welcome Mr. Andre Lewis, that's the president of the Technical Allied Workers Union, and Dr. Ruggles Ferguson, lawyer from Grenada as well, to weigh in on the whole issue with SGU, vaccinations, employment in Grenada. Welcome, guys. How are you?
I am okay for
Hello,
the
good
time.
morning. Yes,
Okay. So
yes,
first
good
off,
morning.
so first off, guys,
Yes. Well, first, have given me Kelon's doctorate.
yeah,
Kitaka, sorry, are you hearing me?
yeah, I'm hearing you clearly.
Are you hearing me? Sorry, are
Yes,
you hearing me?
yes.
Yes, yes, okay. I said you seem to have given me Kelon's doctorate. I think let's leave the doctorate for Kelon, which he so richly deserves. Thank you, but good morning and happy Father's Day to all fathers out there, and good morning to all listeners.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining us. So from June 18th, the recent statistics from the Ministry of Health, approximately 19,217 Grenadians have received the first dose of the vaccine. Second dose, 10,608. Recently, from a statement from the Vice Chancellor of the St. George's University, and I quote, planning for the safe return to campus began several months ago, and faculty and staff were notified in advance of changes to the campus's entry policy. Now, while we have maintained pay for all faculty and staff over the past 15 months, including salary increases and bonuses, we cannot continue to do so for those who did not return to work. That's Dr. Richard Liborski. He continued to say, our goal is to have all staff and faculty return to work on campus. While we do not want to lose valuable members of the SGU community or stop pay for any staff or faculty members, we cannot return to safe operations on campus without everyone being vaccinated. These policies are also consistent with the actions of other universities around the world. End of quote. Now, Andre, I mean, we have seen small pockets of protest at the entrance of the SGU. I mean, you have made public pronouncements about dialogue ongoing between the union and SGU. Can you give us an update as to where we are in that entire situation?
Sure. Thank you very much, Kitaka, and good morning to the viewers and listeners. Happy Father's Day to everyone. Give me 1 second to basically congratulate Dr. Kelon Bob on his significant achievement that he has made. Kelon, as I remember him from the early days of Cablevision, and also a member of TAU. So on behalf of the Technical and Allied Workers Union, we want to congratulate him for what he has done, and both for himself and for Grenada. As it comes to the matter that you raise, yes, there's ongoing discussions. As a matter of fact, up to recently as Friday, we held discussions with SGU. The discussions are very amicable. We are trying to sort out the issue of pay for the people who are not yet vaccinated, for the people who are not allowed to report to the compound to continue their work. So there is this ongoing discussion.
Okay. So can you give us a rough estimate of the number of workers who have refused the vaccine and who you maybe been in communication with in terms of trying to bargain for them to get pay after SGU made the policy change?
Well, information that we have up to Friday, there were roughly about 39 people that are considered to be on leave. Out of these people, there are those that may have varying positions as to where they are as to taking the vaccine. Because this is not an easy period for a number of people. As you yourself have indicated, this is not a normal time. And as we try to protect life, as we try to maintain health, and we try to address the economics, these are the challenges that we are faced with. So that's why it requires a genuine discussion between employers, workers, and their bargaining agents to try to work ourselves through this particular period. So there's roughly about 30-something people. We have addressed the issue of exemptions, and the key thing is to seek to ensure that whilst these colleagues and us and the school go through the process of discussion, that they suffer no loss of benefits. So that's the nature of the discussion that we have been engaged in.
Okay, well, the quote I just gave about from the Vice Chancellor, he made it very clear in terms of making the point that they've been paying salaries for a long time, even during the COVID period. And SGU laid down the ultimatum, get vaccinated before the June 15th or go on no pay leave. Are they going to follow through based on the talks you're having now? Are they going to follow through with that action, or will the workers who have received the vaccine get a salary at the end of the month? Are you in a position to give us any indication of if that might happen?
Well, what I'm saying, the fact that we are talking, we are very hopeful. We remain open. Obviously, the school stated this position. And let me indicate that this discussion started months ago. We stated our positions. We engaged. There was a series of discussions. As the position of the labor movement is, the Technical and Allied Workers Union and the labor movement position is that, whereas we support vaccine, because vaccination is another aspect in the fight against COVID. COVID is real. Just as how sanitizing, physical distancing, washing of hands, etc., vaccination is one of the other process. But that should be also an individual choice, because there are challenges. That should be an individual choice, and especially in the context for what we call existing workers, because these workers' terms and condition of employment did not include that particular aspect. So that's where the nature of the discussion is taken. As I say, it is very cordial discussion. These are very cordial discussions that we have been engaged in. We believe in the aspect of suasion, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with an employer, any one of us, calling on people to be vaccinated, but advancing the reasons for the vaccination, why we think it is positive. Are you following me? Yes? Okay. So we believe in suasion. We believe in education. We believe in dialogue. And that is what we are calling for.
Okay. So I'll bring in Ferguson here. Many local activists, and there's a large outcry from the society right now around the issue. Many are saying it's unconstitutional. So, Ruggles, I would like to get you to shed some legal light on the decision taken by SGU. First of all, is it constitutional? If, let's say, for instance, as a worker at SGU decide I don't want to take the vaccine and I'm not employed, do I have a case?
Okay, thank you. I'm hearing you a bit clearer now. I just changed devices. I didn't hear most of what went before. But on the question, is it constitutional? And the first issue I want to point out in relation to the constitutionality is that there is no supporting legislation for the taking of the vaccine. In other words, no law has been passed recently in relation to the taking of the vaccine that can be challenged to say whether or not it's constitutional. Because really and truly, it has been largely left up to the policy of employers. So the question of constitutionality will be debated whenever a law, or if and when the government decides to pass a law through parliament, of course, or introduce legislation or regulations to make the vaccine mandatory. They have not done so. And therefore, it is more what you call a private law issue than a public law issue, meaning matters that touch and concern the Constitution with respect to rights, individual rights, whether or not a law breaches a particular right, those are in the realm of what you call public law. You can challenge it, for example, through administrative action, the bringing of judicial review proceedings, or the bringing of a constitutional motion. So because the government, like most governments, throughout the region and the world have decided to let it be dealt with at the employer level, and it's introduced per employer as a matter of policy. And that's part of the problem that exists, because once you have the employer doing it as a matter of policy, then the issue of arbitrariness starts to creep in, because each employer will introduce a policy to the extent that he or she sees fit. Now, so I mentioned private law. Let me just go on to the public law. Let me go on to the private law aspect of it. So in private law, the employer will find support through what we refer to as the common law, judge-made law over the centuries that our respective countries like Grenada do not have supporting legislation for. And that is what we refer to as the common law. And the common law says that an employer has a duty, a common law duty, to provide, among other things, a safe system of work and a safe place of work. So it can be argued from an employer's perspective that, listen, in order for us to provide a safe place of work for our employees, one, our customers, for the visitors to our workplace, we need to get the vaccination in place. So we have introduced it as a policy in keeping with our legal duty to ensure that there is a safe system of work. We are introducing the vaccine. Now, that's all well and good. However, the other aspect of it now is what happens if a worker, for religious or some other conscientious reason, says, I am not taking the vaccine. Can an employer say, okay, well, I can't sustain paying you if you are not working, and therefore you are dismissed? And that's where the issues come in, because first and foremost, no employer, nobody at all can force anybody to take the vaccine. That's a no-no. I think that's accepted. They can't hold on anybody to take the vaccine. One. Secondly, however, they can introduce conditions that become so onerous that people who do not want to take the vaccine or have some reason, good reason why they should not take it in order to save their jobs, then they have to take it. If they don't take it, then what can the employer do? And that is where you need some kind of regulation, some kind of law to introduce certainty at the level of the workplace. Because some employers will say, listen, you are not coming, you are not coming to work because you can't come to work because you're not taking the vaccine. Therefore, we fire you, we dismiss you. Then what happens to a worker, for example, who has been employed for 25 years, has no disciplinary infractions? What happens to the benefits of that particular worker? Is it left up to the employer? So there is some hazy issue there, because the Employment Act says, and the Employment Act, which is an act in place in Grenada, Act 14 of 1999, says you can only dismiss an employee if you have valid reasons for so doing. And those valid reasons must be related to, one, the conduct of the employee, two, the operational requirements of the business, three, breach of contract, four, breach of disciplinary rules. So if you have an employee for 25 years, no disciplinary infractions, in fact, a model employee, and that person says, listen, for whatever reason, I cannot take the vaccine, there is no regulation in place to say this is what the employer must do. And that's part of the problem that exists. So from a constitutional standpoint, there is no regulation in place or no act passed by the Parliament to make the vaccine mandatory. What you have is a policy on the part of private employers, not even the state, the government, a policy on the part of private employers which says, listen, if you don't take the vaccine, as in the case of SGU, then you can't come on the workplace. And by extension, if you can't come on the workplace, it means that you're not working and therefore you wouldn't get pay. The question is, how long would that last? And after what time frame would that employee be dismissed? So if that issue is not addressed, and those issues where you have certainty by the introduction of some regulations which would guide each employer as to what can and cannot be done, set the limits to the power of the employee, of the employer, that is, then we can have some problems of an industrial kind in the next few weeks or so.
Okay, so what I'm getting from all of this is something very critical: policy to govern the whole situation, laws to govern the whole situation. And our government has decided to not step in and have any law or policy on that, and have left it up to the employers. Now, Andre, like, if, let's say, the government changes that approach and they realize now that they need to put some laws in place, what are some provisions you think that absolutely needs to be there to protect the rights of the workers within the whole vaccination and employment situation?
Well, first of all, let me just piggyback on this, and the issue is bigger than just the government not having policies. The government has made a pronouncement. The government has said, look, hey, I am not making vaccination mandatory, but it is the right of the employer to do what it wants, to say, look, if you're not vaccinated, do not come to my compound. And if you cannot come to my compound, you cannot work. So in a way, the government has clearly taken a side. The government has clearly told the employer, and I want workers to appreciate that, because the employer is feeling emboldened right now that they have the right and the authority as given to them by the government, not in law, but in pronouncement, that they can unilaterally tell a worker not to come to their compound. Now, as Ruggers have indicated, there ought to be discussions on these matters because a number of companies and the unions can reach compromises on issues. Most unions, all unions, will have aspects under the collective agreement as to how you can approach certain matters. The bigger question will be, especially for us in Tau, the unrepresented workers. But before we reach to the aspect of separation, discussing the aspect of if a worker does not want to be vaccinated, the question needs to be addressed that is it absolutely necessary for all employees to be vaccinated at a workplace? If the answer is no, then what we need to discuss is the aspect of continuing of the physical distancing, the aspect of the mask, the aspect of sanitizing, the aspect of the observation of what we call the protocols that have guided us over the period. So because these are critical issues that needs to be addressed. So that is what we're advancing. We're advancing that we recognize the need to ensure that there is a safe working environment. We recognize the need to reopen the country. And we also recognize that as you reopen, the chances of having a spread is significantly increased as is happening in Trinidad. And therefore, we have that responsibility as a country, as a labor movement, and as a people to do all that is reasonably required to minimize the spread as much as is possible.
Okay. Well, Andre, SGU is and has been a critical contributor to the Grenadian economy. The bars, the supermarkets, the real estate properties within Grenada's area depend heavily on SGU. Now, even on June 18th, I'm seeing a release here, a memorandum from Real Value, and I can quote, employees, as we made clear, businesses who serve the SGU population are expected to provide a safe COVID-19 low-risk environment. This includes Real Value. Employees who have not yet vaccinated against COVID are encouraged to do so before July 1st and provide a copy of vaccination card to HR. End of quote. Now, there seems to be a developing domino effect here, at least within the businesses that service SGU students primarily. Now, Andre, can you weigh in on this? Like, what's the union's long-term plans to address what might be the increasing number of workers whose employment may be at risk because of the decision not to take the vaccine?
Well, before we reach a long-term plan, we have to address the immediate. And that is why we need to take this thing phase by phase. Real value supermarket workers are represented by our union. And therefore, our union, and other unions, given the fact that we represent a number of different workplaces, will have a number of different challenges. We originally faced that STAU with the aspect of ACB, formerly RBTT workers, because ACB, RBTT, has a branch located at SGU. And because of the SGU's policies, taking into account that the workers are not employees of SGU, they had to be vaccinated to go to the compound. But the workers were okay. They understood the need to take the vaccine. And that is what we are saying. Education is important. In the case of Real Value, we were in dialogue with Real Value and we expected them to communicate with us. Yes, on this matter, based on what you have read out, it is saying that they're encouraging workers. And there's nothing wrong with that employer encouraging workers to be vaccinated. What is important, it is a method to be used. And therefore, we can foresee engagement with Real Value because the Real Value location and issue will be different to SGU location. Whereas in SGU, they can control their gate, they can lock down the place and have only vaccinated people come in. In the case of Real Value is open to the population. Real Value is open to the whole of Grenada. So we would not want to preempt this. What we will say is that as we have done, we have been able to rise to the different challenges. There are different challenges that requires different approaches, and we certainly shall be taking up this matter.
Okay. Well, we'll get some questions now from viewers. As I look, let me pull back in Mr. Ferguson. There's Cassandra here saying a contract is an agreement between two parties. The change in the terms and conditions must be agreed upon by both. An employer can dictate the conditions for new employees according to the Employment Act. Ruggles?
Okay. Good question. And there is the position stated that, okay, in relation to existing employers, or existing employees, the employer cannot unilaterally change the employment contract and therefore can only do it in relation to new employees. That's a popular position that I have heard out there, and it's generally a correct position. However, I must add to that every employment contract has what you call expressed terms and implied terms, and it's also subject to the law. So, for example, even though it's not expressed in terms of the obligation of the employer and the employee under the existing contract, you won't see vaccination for COVID there, because that's an evolving and developing situation. And no contract provides for every circumstance that is to take place in the future. And therefore, what all contracts, including collective agreements, including individual contracts between employer and employee, is governed by the overarching provisions of the law. And what I can see an employer arguing is that, listen, under law, we have a duty, a legal duty, to provide two things, a safe system of work and a safe place of work. An employer has both what you call a personal duty of care to every employee, and an employer is also, secondly, what you call vicariously liable for the acts of his employees. So, for example, if an employer A has an employee B who has COVID, and that employee B passes it on to customer C of the business, then employer A can be sued in negligence by by customer C for the acts, not his direct acts, but the acts of employee B. So it can be argued, listen, all of these contracts are subject to the law. It's subject to implied terms. So that is one argument that can be raised with respect to that particular point. On the other side of it, and that's why I say it is no easy answer. And that is why what is required here are two things, I would say. One, education. And education, not just from the level of government, but activism among groups and engagement out there, because people have genuine concerns about the vaccine. And those concerns must be listened to, must be responded to. And if you want to achieve, which is what is said, has been declared herd immunity, that is 70% at least of the population being vaccinated, you can't achieve that by force, because people are naturally have an adverse reaction to anything forced upon them. But education on the one hand, and two, and I believe Andre mentioned the point, collaboration among all the partners and stakeholders, employee, employer, government, trade union, employer organization, to work through this particular model that is not an easy model to work through. I've been following most of the developments outside and the cases outside, and what seems to be arising, even in cases where the acts have been challenged constitutionally or from a human rights standpoint outside, the court seems to be ruling in favor of the public interest. There was a ruling in Texas recently, I believe, Bridges and Houston Methodist Hospital, where it was challenged by several employees who did not take the vaccine, and there was a ruling against them. Again, the court coming down in favor of the public interest. Now, again, most of these countries, different countries have different legislation and laws in place. However, I think the principle is the same. Maybe more importantly, in April, May, I believe, there was a ruling by the European Court of Human Rights in a case out of Czechoslovakia, but that concerned mandatory vaccination for children. And the court ruled that mandatory vaccination for children was necessary in a democratic society, given the type of diseases they were being vaccinated against. And while these judgments are not binding on our courts, but they certainly have a persuasive effect. And even though government is to introduce legislation, what will happen is that is a question of the balancing of individual rights against public interests. And under the Constitution itself, Parliament may pass laws that interfere with individual rights in the interest of public health, public safety, public order, public morality, defense. But those laws that are introduced must be proportionate, and that's why they refer always to the test of proportionality, to just as do what is necessary and no more to meet the objective of public health or public safety, as the case may be.
Okay, well, thank you, Rogers. Well, guys, time is running away from us. So I want to get some final words from both before we wrap up. I think this conversation needs to continue in depth to further the education on the entire process, so we can have cordial and rational and mature solutions to the problems. And Andre, you care to jump in with your summary and final thoughts?
Sure. Thank you very much. And just to let the listening and viewing public know, and yourself, that the Technical and Allied Workers Union and the Grenada Trades Union Council have been engaging legal minds on these discussions. Yes. And given the responsibilities and duties that we have to advise our workers in their best interest in the preservations of jobs, these things are important. And that is why it is important for us to be engaged in these kind of discussions with employers, government, other groups, workers, bearing in mind that these workers have genuine concerns. As a matter of fact, we are aware that employers as human beings, quite a number of them also have concerns about the vaccines. So what is important is that ongoing discussion, but in our case, we have the more pressing immediate matter of SGU, which we have been discussing with them. We are waiting a response from them further to a discussion of Friday. Now the real value matter is rearing its head. There will be engagement, as our engagement in the past, and they are expected to communicate with us. But based on what I'm hearing, you read out there, it is an encouragement to the workers. It is not saying that you have to take the vaccine. It is encouraging them to understand the important role that a number of these places, including SGU, is playing in the survival of the company. Because as we speak, a number of the workers are at home. As we speak, a number of the workers are working with reduced salaries. So we have to find that balance of life, health, and economy, and to be guided with informed views by colleagues and the legal colleagues who we know have an interest in workers. The other aspect, again, finally, is that many times what one will find, a legal solution sometimes can take years. A legal solution sometimes can take years. We have examples with the same SGU where we had a matter in the court that went for 9 years and 10 years, and then workers got frustrated. We have an issue with former LASOS where it took us 2006 to 13 years for the matter to be resolved, and we had to eventually resolve it outside of the court. And that is why the Technical and Allied Workers Union preferred approach on this matter is that of dialogue, right? Mutual dialogue across the table, understanding the concerns that all of us have. And I want to encourage colleagues to continue to follow the protocols that are necessary to keep us safe.
Robert's final thoughts before we go to break?
Okay, thank you. Are you hearing me, by the way? Because I'm hearing fairly low. Okay, yes, I want to agree with Andre in terms of the approach that ought to be taken in relation to this matter. Remember, it's challenging for everybody at all levels. We have to understand that. What we do know is that COVID is a pandemic. We all have an individual and collective responsibility to ensure that COVID does not spread. In Grenada, we have had 0 cases for some time, but we can't be complacent. We see what is happening to St. Kitts. That was way behind us in numbers. And from a few days ago, they started with a spike of 55, and now I understand it's over 300 cases, way beyond our number of cases. I think we are still on 161, but we cannot be complacent. It's difficult for the employer organizations, trade unions, for the government, for everybody to manage this situation. And what it calls for is really collaboration. And what we have to ensure, and a special appeal in relation to employers, is that employers don't take advantage of this situation in relation to people, for example, who are not vaccinated, and just say, well, listen, you are fired, and then you lose all the benefits, the severance benefits, the termination allowance,
that you would otherwise be entitled to. And therefore, what it calls for is engagement, because what I can anticipate, because of the policy that can lead to arbitrariness out there, that the Labor Department will have complaints coming, scores of complaints coming on a daily basis that they won't be able to handle. We should try and avoid at all costs confrontation, and encourage people, use the art of persuasion to ultimately get people to either take the vaccination or take such other measures as may be necessary to prevent the spread of COVID. If you note, there are several regulations that have come out since COVID. The wearing of masks, social distancing, all of these things are ingrained in regulations. It says if you do not wear a mask, what's the consequence? You can get a ticket. If you get a ticket the first time, you go to court and you're found guilty, the second time, what the implications? The third time. There is certainty in the law. Right now, as relation to policy, it's arbitrary, where it is left to all employers to decide whether or not it's mandatory, and if it's mandatory, what are the consequences for the employee. And it's too open-ended and invites confrontation, and I would strongly urge that both employer and employee sit across the table and work out the mechanisms so at least you can have a much smoother, less confrontational approach to this problem.
And thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, viewers. We'll be right back with the second segment. As we said earlier, we're going to be putting the lens on our fathers, our men of our society when we get back. Thank you so much, guys, and enjoy your Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, and enough love.
Take care. All the very best.
Since losing that seat, what have you been up to?
Now, Mr. Attorney General, this particular provision sounds unconstitutional. But why were there not consultations before moving forward with the proposals? Did they say what will happen when you guys get to St. Vincent? Because there are pressing socio-economic issues that I would want to address with you. In the hyper-information age of social media, the Bubb Report knows there is more to the story. We have questions and demand answers. We strive to hold the powerful accountable and tell an unbiased, contextual story. You know what happened. We let you know why it happened. There is always more to the story. The Bubb Report, streaming every Sunday at 11 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. The Bubb Report. As I said earlier, I am filling in for Kellan Bob today. Hope I'm filling his huge shoes very well. The conversation now, it's a part 2 of the conversation we had on the show last week. You know, where we dived into the situation of gender-based violence and the state of affairs within our society. And that show, you know, opened up a Pandora box, can of worms. And today it's Father's Day, and we have decided to take a closer look at our men, you know, the marginalization, you know, the domestic violence. How can we support our men, you know, moving forward? You know, how can the media and the society help to ensure that we nip some of the things that needs to be nipped in the bud based on the statistics. So joining us today, we have Mr. Terrence Walters. Terrence, if you can unmute your mic. Thank you for joining us. How are you, sir? Happy Father's Day if you're a father.
Yes, I am a father, and thank you very much. Yes, doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Okay, joining us out of Belize, our brother Omar Rodriguez. How are you, Omar? How is things over in Belize?
Hi, good evening. Great. I'm here in Belize. Pretty nice weather, hot. We're doing good.
Joining us from Grenada, Miss Aruna Neptune. Aruna, how are you?
I am great, thank you. Good morning.
So joining us as well is Francis Urias Peters. Francis, are you there with us?
Yes, I think I'm here.
Okay, nice for joining us. Some very beautiful faces, and thank you guys for taking time out of your Father's Day Sunday. Maybe you could have been cooking lunch for Daddy now, but you're here on the Bubb Report, and we appreciate that. First off, I grew up hearing some phrases which kind of rubbed me the wrong way because I think I had a very fantastic dad. I have a fantastic dad who really played his role. But I grew up hearing stories of men are dogs, men are trash. You know, there seems to be a strong narrative that paints a very ugly and disgusting picture of our men sometimes. And first of all, before we get into it, I would like to get the panel to weigh in on, you know, some of those concepts and narratives and stereotypes and the marginalization of the men within our society. Like, I would like to hear your guys' thoughts. We can start with you, Terence, and we'll hear other people weigh in on it as well as we get the discussion going.
Well, first of all, again, thanks. I lost my dad quite early, so some of the things that you've experienced with your dad as you grow up, I can't speak to them directly. But in terms of the marginalization of our men in society, I think it's because of some of the experiences that we've had, or women or children, some of the things that we've seen from our men, how they treat women, how they treat children. We've had we're still having the experiences of men having children here, there, and everywhere. So we have those experiences that we live with, and that is part of the reason, I would say, for the whole marginalization of our men. Yeah, that's what I think.
Omar.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Viewers. Greetings from Belize. Also, I like to weigh in on that discussion there. I too lost my dad at when I was a very young dad myself. So there was a lot that I saw in the early age of his life. You know, he had 14 kids, and there was so much that I saw through my 10 brothers also, and it was pretty on a marginalized also, where all that I saw was much of negativity, and it really weighed in a lot on me and made me believe that that was my part too. But I think through different projects and intervention and opportunity to make the changes, I could say I'm on my part on a different path to change, and I'm very happy, and I'm feeling so overwhelmed right now because on a special day like today, Father's Day, he lived his life to what he could have lived it, and that was his choice. And today, I love him very much. He was that hero for me. Without him, I wouldn't be here. But there was a lot that I think we know could be a different change for our kids. And as a young father too, I want to do that for my kids. I have 3 boys, and I really want to make that change for them because we're facing a very challenging moment, especially the males in our community today.
Okay, I'll put in Aruna here. There is a high rate of single parent households that it's headed by females. And have you seen, or can we say that there is some kind of a reason why our boys may not be able to grow up into men that can effectively contribute in the society because of the absence of role models and being present in their lives? Like, what effect does like single parent households headed by women have to play in the whole situation? Aruna, are you there? Can you unmute your mic? Yeah.
You hearing me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, fine. Yes. So good morning again, Kitaka. Good morning to all the viewers, and also happy Father's Day. Hope you guys will have an enjoyable day. Now, in reference to the question, and this is something that I've spoken about several times, because based on what I do, I come in contact daily with a lot of mothers or women who, want somebody to talk to and express themselves. And, they're basically saying, we need fathers or men to be more involved in our children's lives. But at the same time, we also have to understand that, okay, there are things that prevents them from doing that. But be that as it may, I always say whatever issue you have with the mother of your child or children, your children should come first at all times, regardless of what issue. And too many times we have, we the relationship, we're no longer together, and that means my child is no longer a part of your life, and what have you. And then, they get such a hard time that they decide, you know what, I'm not gonna fight this battle. Take me to court. And whatever the court stipulates I have to pay, I'll pay. Another thing I always say is that a woman can't teach a man how to be a man. I think a man is the fittest person to do that. You can't teach a man, a woman just can't teach a man how to be a man. We can more relate to our daughters because we understand our body, we understand what happens and stuff like that. But how do you, as a single mother, teach your boy to be a man? You can try your best. You can teach him the values and things that you think he should know about, how to treat a woman, etc. But that male presence, it is needed. And sadly, we're seeing a lot of single mothers. Now, it's not a blame game because both parties have to take responsibility. And I say to women all the time, listen, you meet this man, all right? He's in a relationship, probably left, and he's not taking care of his child or children with that woman. You turn around and get pregnant for same man, and you have expectations that, okay, you're different, you're gonna get him to take care of yours. And then when that does not happen, we start with the men are dogs, and then this, that, or the other. It's not every time you engage in sexual intercourse with a person, you have to, have a child, because a lot of these children, they're not prepared for it. It's not planned. It happens. And sometimes the men are saying, well, I'm not even ready to be a father. So that is basically my take on it. I think that both sides have a part to play, and we have to be more responsible. We have to be more responsible in choosing partners who I think will be a good father to the children, not just have a child because we had sex.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. I'll bring in Francis Peters here. Now, Francis, renowned playwright, and we have seen sometimes, culture sometimes has the power, the creative arts has the power to convey the message and to bring about things to the light without it being so charged by the political stuff and everything that surrounds it. Now, for you, how can we maybe use the creative arts to address some of those issues? Do you have any plays that you have utilized so far to bring across things that could help to inspire our men or help to change the perception and help with the marginalization of our men within our society?
Okay, before I just answer the question, I just want to make an opening statement. And I believe it's an African proverb which says it takes a village to bring up a child. And I grew up at a time when the village took care of me, whether I was in St. George's or when I was in Marquis, St. Andrew. And I believe that when we turn our backs on our traditional values, it is a sure formula for chaos and decadence. We have seen it in Trinidad, Jamaica. We have seen it right here now. And I'm saying here that we have spent so much time trying to focus on building a physical infrastructure, traffic lights, stadium, roads, etc. But we have failed to focus enough on the social infrastructure, which is so vitally important. In fact, as equally as important as the physical infrastructure. So this is something that we have to look at seriously. Even us as males, people from my generation of children of the 50s, 60s, I think where we had the last bastion of discipline. Sometimes it can be harsh, but at least we did understand what discipline is and also to be involved in the community. But we have opted out also. We have opted out and have not been involved enough in our communities. So I think here that it's really, really a challenging situation, but we have to find ways and means to address the issues. And frankly, yes, I believe here that the arts is such a very powerful medium for addressing, for issues, for disseminating information. It's like the torch, a torch like to shine and to shine the light and to pave a way as we move forward. Also, it can be held as a mirror to show, listen, this is how we behave, this is our reflection, and the arts can play a very important role in addressing these issues. And yes, I have done plays. There was a play which I did we called it, first of all, A Case of Incest. but it's now renamed called What's Your Verdict? And I remember in the early 90s, when incest was not a crime on the law books of Grenada. There was no crime called incest. And I remember Ms. Valerie Cornwall, and she is a former and deceased now, a president of the Grenada National Organization of Women. And Valerie came to me as the director of Family Theatre Company and says, Urias, can you please help us? What can you do with a play or some cultural form to put pressure on the powers that be, the government of the day, to pass laws that's going to criminalize incest? And I came up with a play called What's Your Verdict? We did it first of all at Marisha Folk Theatre throughout every single parish in Grenada. When it was last done at Marisha Folk Theatre, we invited Dr. Francis Alexis, who was the then Attorney General, to come and sit in and look at the play. In fact, the interesting thing about that production was every night we asked 12 members of the audience to become the jury panel. And Dr. Francis Alexis was there at one particular production. And 3 months after, I can remember Dr. Francis Alexis meeting me somewhere in St. George's and says, Urias, you've got your law passed to show the power of theater, the power of the arts. But then again, laws alone are not enough in order to bring about change, because as we speak, the sexual crimes, especially against children in our country, and rape and incest still continues unabated. So here I say, but still, apart from that, the arts is very important. I've done several radio dramas that addressed social issues. Some of them have won regional competitions, and I'm hoping and trusting that the powers that be are going to see the importance of radio drama, because radio can make a comeback right now, especially in this this period where we cannot gather as mass audiences. But I think the radio has a very important role to play, and I'm looking forward really to play my continued role as using the arts and radio dramas to address these issues.
Okay, thank you. Omar, out in Belize, you work with the Engaging Men and Boys Project. Now, can you tell us a bit about some of the work you have been doing, maybe to help with address some of the problems that we have discussed so far in the program?
Sure. Yeah, we're closely working with the National Women's Commission and the Spotlight Initiative and SCLAN. And we are reaching out to boys and men in different organizations in trying to have this intervention where we focus on training on the accountability, equality, guiding these boys and men how they could be that change, that example for others. And the program we have been reaching out youth organization, kids who are vulnerable, and even professionals in different areas of the workplaces. So we are putting in invites to the different workplaces, reaching out to the military, to the police recruits, helping them to begin to look at this in a different dimension, to be the change, to be better fathers, to be better husbands, to be better citizens. And this whole program is geared into being allies with the women who, from the 80s, they have been fighting, because we have seen, even though there has been a lot of work done, we have seen the statistics have consistently been there, growing, and so we and studies had shown that we need us men to be a part of this change, because we have been the one perpetrating all these acts. So now we are in the change, fighting side by side with our women colleagues to reach out to our boys and men to change this whole mentality. So I think it's a very awesome program. We're getting there, and we're seeing the change moving forward little by little.
Oh, Terence, well, you formerly worked with the Office of Drug Control Secretariat in Grenada, the Office of Drug Control Secretariat in Grenada, and well, our brother there, Omar, made an important point. I mean, the data is mounting, pointing to men as major culprits for like violence against women. For you, like, I know alcohol is also another issue within our Grenadian society and in the Caribbean. What links have you been seeing, and what has the data shown you, or what have you experienced in terms of alcoholism and that correlation with violence done by men to women?
Yeah, well, in recent times, we've seen a lot of a lot of substance abuse, all right, among men, among our young people. And we've seen there was an increase of substance abuse, in particular alcohol, and again, in particular among our girls. So we have seen that increase, but again, it has to do with our socialization, because we consume a lot of alcohol in the Caribbean, and men think it's cool, it's okay to consume alcohol. So you see it, like, I mean, after school, the young men will gather, they have something in a bottle hidden, and they're consuming alcohol. Again, it goes back to the home. Where how do we socialize our children as it relates to alcohol? Do we drink in their presence? Do we tell them it's okay to drink? All right, and do we drink with them? Because there are instances where parents drink with their children, young children I'm talking about. All right, and so if we look at all those issues and we bring them together, we realize that alcohol would impact on individuals differently. And some men, they become violent when they consume alcohol. So there's substance abuse, alcohol, marijuana, and other substances, right? These sometimes cause our young men to commit, or to become violent, commit a number of crimes, crimes against our children, crimes against our women, crimes against society. So it is an issue that we have to investigate, an issue that we have to deal with, and the whole issue of substance abuse, we have to, we have to be a collective approach, okay? Not just the school or the church or the government, but it has to be a collective approach in society where we tackle that issue of substance abuse and how it is impacting on our men and our young women also. We have to look at that.
Okay. I mean, earlier on, Aruna, you stated that, you interact with a lot of different people, women, you're a broadcaster, hear a lot of views all the time. Speak to violence against women, state of affairs in Grenada, even your own personal experiences as a woman in growing and living in a society where, violence against women seems to be so prevalent.
Mm-hmm. One thing I could say, though, is that I'm happy that women are speaking up more. Violence against women isn't new, and we can go as far back as we possibly can. And someone who witnessed it, who've seen it firsthand growing up as a child, even then it was considered no big deal if a man or husband or whatever slaps his wife, punches his wife, whatever. Everybody turned a blind eye. It's almost like, okay, that's my property, that's my wife, I can do whatever I want to her. And it just seemed to have, over the years, it's grown more, because one have to take into consideration, you're growing up in a home as a young man, and you see your father beating, abusing your mother, or whatever the case might be. Who is to tell you differently or teach you differently within that household that, hey, this isn't right? So you grew up thinking, okay, my dad did it, so it's okay. So how do we break that cycle is the question. Is it through education? Is it through having more programs like these, or having forums within the villages? Because we seriously have a problem. If we were to look at the statistics, it is alarming. And abuse goes both ways, because there are men who are abused as well. And I say to men, the same rule applies. If you're being abused in a situation or whatever it is, you have a right to go to the relevant authorities and make a report. And the relevant authorities ought to take you seriously, because that seems to be one of the issues. Probably go to the police. And I've heard of instances where men said, you know what, we went to the police to report this, and they laugh. And, like telling you, man up, put some hair on your chest and go deal with your woman or go deal with your family. And the same can be said for women. Although he might be providing for you, might be taking care of the household, whatever, does not mean you accept blows. That is not your lot. That's not something you should accept at all. And it's startling to say, it's not just, you'll think, okay, well, the older, but we have women in their teens in relationships that are being physically abused daily. So it seems as though, and again, that is where we need more male role models. We need more men to stand up and, of course, to coach or teach our younger men that there's no way, shape, or form abusing a woman is okay. Because I always ask, like, how do you tell somebody you love them today? We go to bed at night, you hug me up, whatever, we're good. And then the next day you're raining blows on that person. Where does that fit in the equation? So I think what we need to do is like have more programs like these, go into the villages. We have community centers. It seems there are no grazing pastures. You're seeing animal tied in the yard. You're seeing all sorts of crazy things happening in our community centers. It's like they were created to have a party or, people lime and what have you. How about we go back there and from the schools where we have boys only, start the conversation there. Let's talk about it as a young man. What do you think your responsibility is? When you look at a woman, what do you think? What do you feel? What do you see? What would you like? What are your expectations? Because, I mean, I'm not sure if everyone on the panel or in the audience saw the video that circulated a couple months ago with these young boys from a particular school. And when they were asked if they were given the authority or the power or something for one day, or if they were to die tomorrow, whatever, and they had the opportunity to do whatever, they spoke about raping women. And, everything was sexual. There was no, okay, well, I'd like to change the world. I'd like to do this, do that, or the other. It was to do with harming or having some sort of relation with a woman. So that means we really need to go back and not wait until it gets out of hand. The younger we can start having the younger folks, we need to start having these conversations with them. And the best place to me to start is in the classroom. Because you may think they don't know what's going on, but they're fully aware. There's a lot that they talk about with their peers that they don't talk about with you as the parents in the home.
Thank you, Aruna. Uras, as a man, would you like to jump in here after Aruna in terms of some of the things she shared?
Yeah, very much. I mean, just to pick up on what Aruna has just left us with, the classroom is so vitally important. I think it was last year or just before COVID struck, we did over the same. What's your verdict? That's the play on incest and violence against women, and we invited the schools. It was staged at the Labukan Creative Center, and we can hold about 60 to 70 persons there. And the school community, especially from St. George's, came. And I was amazed at the reaction of these young children. Even afterwards, the analysis, the input, the engagement after the play. So it shows here that the importance of the arts here, especially at a young age where these children can be reached. Because when we do theater and drama, there is an emotional transference. I think that's one of the best way in order to capture an audience. Whether you're on the pulpit, on the political platform, there has to be that emotional transference. And with the arts, it can put you in a particular situation that you can see. A lot of times we talk, but the arts actually can transfer that talk into action. So I do agree here that we have to engage our young people, our school-age population. And I was thinking even the curriculum, even the textbooks that we write, some of those issues, these social issues, can be addressed through the text. Because I'm saying here that even though they are very dark issues, once they're done in a creative way, I know that we can reach. Because a child, they say the first 7 years of a child, I believe, that's where attitudes and personality are being formed. So I think it's important here is that we catch these kids even before the age of 7 to try to see if we can address or readdress some of those issues that the home or even the community cannot take care of. Because I'll tell you, a teacher is a God. The teachers are God. I think we underestimate the importance of teaching. To me, that's the most important job in the world, teaching. So I say I'm ready and prepared. We have a cadre of young persons that we have trained at the Labukan Creative Center. We are ready and prepared to use the arts. Of course, it has to be funded, but we are prepared to use the arts to be disciples of change.
Okay, thank you, Ras. And guys, we're going to take a short break right now. And when we return, we're going to switch it on a bit more positive note, like some success stories of fatherhood and the importance of mentorship. Like, how do we break the cycle of toxic masculinity? And how do we, really help and support our men to become better and be better? So stick with us and we'll be right back.
became a father very young, and that 16. So my dear, and that was never nice. I have 4 baby mothers, 6 kids. I'm a responsible father, but sometimes it is rough. You have to send $1,000 there, $1,000 there, another $1,000 different place. If a man is getting 6 kids, trust me, it better and get 6 kids with the one woman. I wouldn't encourage no one to have 4 baby mothers. It doesn't work like that. Because if I could turn back times, I would never make that mistake again. Honestly, children need attention. You have to be there for them. You know, and kids need love.
Okay, welcome back. Bubb Report. Looking at our men, looking at our fathers, and we just had that small clip there from that man speaking about his experiences as a father and having so many kids. So now, guys, we're gonna switch the focus to looking forward in a more positive and hopeful light. And Terrence, we'll start with you. Like, you know, what do you envision? Like, you know, what do you hope to see going forward? You know, in terms of supporting our men and putting our men on track to be the best they can.
Well, there is hope. First of all, I want to say there's hope, and we can't lose hope. Now, we have to start early, start with the younger ones, all right? And we have to understand, so look at where we are now, right? Do the analysis, understand what is happening, and find approaches so that we can reach our younger ones, right? But what is important here, I mean, and I'm talking as a father, because it's Father's Day today, and I mean, I was just blown away by the messages I received from my kids, right? I received some Father's Day messages from them, and I was just really blown away. But I believe it is the relationship that we develop with our children. As men, we have to develop a very good relationship with our children, and because our children are different, each child is different. Okay, you have to learn how to reach each child, and in particular our boys. So we have to develop that good relationship with them. We have to give them that good example that they need, and be positive with them. Let them know that they can achieve in life, and that everybody has a place. Okay, sometimes we want our children to all be doctors and lawyers and engineers and so, but we have to let our children know that they each have a place in society, a place in life. So there has to be a positive outlook, a positive kind of outreach we're heading to with our children. And it is not just the men, but it has to be mother and father. I mean, there are cases where you have single parents, right? So we deal with the single parents, but as long as you have mother and father together, it must be an approach where the mother and father come together to develop that really good relationship with the children, and giving them that positive outlook, so the children can understand that, hey, I mean, this is where we are, this is what we have, but we can achieve, and there's so much that we can achieve in life.
Thank you, Terrence. I mean, Omar, like mentorship, like positive role models, like how critical is this in the whole process? And in terms of your organization and the work that you do in Belize, like is that a critical component of what you do, providing positive mentorship for our young boys?
Yes, definitely, Kitaka. We here, well, personally, coming from my home, you know, I have 3 boys, and I could remember an occasion where my wife is speaking to me and she's saying, you know what, Omar, you need to start teaching the boys how to be boys, you know. And like she spoke then to her son and says, well, this is what is happening, but I can't teach you. You need your dad to teach you. Then our son would respond to her and say, Mom, I'm okay. I see what dad is doing. I see his mother. I see how he behave, you know, and that speaks a lot of volume for me. And you know, I didn't realize that, you know, they're keeping a close eye on us as dad. And that's what we need to do. You know, I have a very good relationship with my wife and communication on these situations. We are looking at it, monitoring closely. The best ally a husband could have in the home is their wife, because there is certain communication that the kid does with the mother and that with the father. And then in closed door, we would be able to discuss these things and then see what would be the best way forward to be the intervention for these kids. You know, and our organization is doing likewise. You know, we are going out to the workplaces. We need to target boys and men alike, because many men in Belize we have a great influence from the Western influence on television and all these shows, and also from the Central America, which is very machismo, a masculine, very tough masculine type behavior, and we have a fight, and through our training we are doing it virtually and even face to face now, and we're seeing that many of our boys and men are taking a lot from what they learn from their cultures. And this is pretty hard to break. But when we get in there and begin to show them there is hope, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you know, we could be a change, we could be the difference, and it brings so much happiness. You know, we're seeing the changes happening, and then eventually, you know, these guys become to realize that there are opportunities of change here. And myself being one of the main facilitators, you know, had lived the process, have been through the whole situation of seeing the violence and learning and growing myself through the process, you know, have given me a lot of advantage over this. So I'm seeing greatness in Belize. You know, we are grateful that this is platform are available, and our people, and now as a leader in politics locally, you know, it's a great influence that I could be for my community, and I see the change, and I'm happy to be a part of that with these great organization, SCLAN, the Spotlight Initiative, the National Women's Commission. You know, kudos go out to them, and definitely this will spread and become a worldwide program.
Yeah, thank you, Omar, and thank you for the work you're doing out there in Belize. Aruna, the video clip that we played prior to coming back from the break, where, you know, the man was speaking about the pressure of having many kids, and, you know, it takes us down to another issue, you know, the mental health and the psychological pressure that most of our men are under, and couple that with what is now termed kind of hyper masculinity, some say toxic masculinity, having to prove being tough, having to prove that you're a man, and totally sweep everything under the carpet. As women, like, what role do you think, like, what things you think women can do as the life partners and the supportive system of men to kind of help them through that process of healing from their trauma and dealing with the pressures of life, and to reach to the point of, you know, being better?
For starters, I think we need to start and telling men, as a matter of fact, from since you are a baby, since you're a little boy and you're able to speak and understand, that when you punish them, or whether you physically punish them, or whatever the case might be, we need to start telling them that it's okay to cry. For too long, we've had situations where you'll be beaten as a child, and especially the boys, and you're told not to cry. You're a man, suck it up. Boys don't cry. And from then on to adulthood, we, and when I say we, I'm talking society, women included, we've told men this for too long. And I think we should start reinventing the wheel in terms of saying to men, you don't need to suppress everything. You're human. It's okay to cry. It's okay to show emotions. It does not make you weak, or it does not make you less of a man. It's okay to be vulnerable and be comfortable with being vulnerable, and not just a case of, okay, you tell a man be vulnerable, and then we have an argument and you take that vulnerability and you throw it back in his face. And then he's like, okay, I'm not going to open myself to you anymore because, you know, this is where we are now as a result of me doing that. So I think it requires women to be more supportive and encouraging in terms of telling men, their spouses, their boys, their children, it is okay to be vulnerable. Because what you find is a lot suppressed and you keep it inside. And then there comes a point when you're tired suppressing and it boils over. It's like putting, you know, like you have a drink, right? A Coke or something, and you don't shake it. It remains like that. But you shake it and you shake it and then you open the bottle immediately. What happens? Everything explodes. And to me, it's the same like a man keeping everything inside, internalizing everything. And when he can't take it anymore, he explodes. And unfortunately, a woman, sometimes you end up being the result. We see what happens in the worst cases. So what I would like to see moving forward is that as women, we become more supportive to allowing our men to be vulnerable and not telling him he has to be harsh and hard all the time and be this, you know, this King Kong sort of energy. Because you're also human. I need to see you cry. You can't tell me that there's nothing that affects you where you don't cry and you're not comfortable crying. We're living, especially in where we are now with COVID, and you know, people are frustrated and what have you. We need to show that support as women to the men that we are dealing with. Compliment them. Let them know when they're doing a good job. Not only they only hear from you when, okay, you did something wrong or something, you know, you that's the only time you hear from them. We have good fathers. Let them know that they are good fathers throughout the year. We have men who step up to the plate every single time. Let's not wait on an occasion to let them know what it is. They have feelings as well. So that is what I would really like to see. More support and encouragement where men are concerned in terms of how they feel, telling them it's okay to cry, okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to feel just like everybody else.
Thank you, Aruna. I mean, you're right. So I'd like to pull you in here. I mean, you're a father, and many would say that you are a great father in terms of you try to put your best foot forward. Like, so I'm not a father as yet. Maybe I'll be a father soon.
Next year we'll see Happy Father's Day.
So for you, Iras, what decisions have you made, or what experiences have you had that resulted in molding you differently, where you didn't become a part of the negative statistic, but you veered to be different and to utilize your male energy in a more positive light? And maybe, you know, guys listening can learn from your own personal story.
You know, as a child, I grew up in St. George's. My first 9.5 years was spent in Laguna Road, now currently James Boulevard. But I was uprooted from a 10-member family and sent to live with an old aunt, an elderly aunt in Marquis. Of course, she fed you, she clothed you, she sent you to school, but that was it. As a result of that detachment, I know I was very depressed, developed anxiety syndrome, and it has affected me. You know, up to now, something I still grapple with it. But because of those past experiences, I try my best to use the negative to create something positive in my parenting. I have learned to connect with my children rather than trying to control. I think too many times we try to control our children. I create a very open atmosphere so that they can speak and have no fear of telling me anything. And I try to do that not only with my children, but I see every child, every young person as my child. I would like to treat them as the way I treat my own child. So I think it's important here that as male that we try to connect with the young children in our community. Sometimes just telling them hello, telling them hi, rather than them passing them straight on the street, having conversations. I could remember once, the thing was after Hurricane Ivan, I was on Grenada's beach, and there was these guys, they were cooking food, and then this young woman was walking along the beach. One of these guys, quite obviously he was intoxicated, and he tried to call the woman, tried to get her attention, and she didn't take it on. And he started really abusing her. Again, the father instinct in my head it came in, and the demon in me said I should confront him and tell him exactly how I feel. But then I've learned here, because of experience now, to watch the tone, your tone. So I went to him. I said, "Bro, hey, let me have a word with you." And he came. I said, "You have a mother?" And in this tone, he said, "Yeah." I said, "You have a sister?" He says, "Yes." So he said. So I asked him, "So how would you feel? All right?" whether that was your mother or your sister, and another person is talking to her in the way you talk. You say, sorry, boss. Sorry. Sorry, boss. So I think here, despite what we think the negatives are for young people, that they can be reached if we have the right approach. I'm also calling, every time I speak to a religious minister here, the church also has a very important role in society. Once you have a congregation of 20 or more, it's important here that you understand there's power there. But we cannot just continue to take our guidance from the interpretation, even of the scriptures from the United States, but we have to realize that we're living in a Caribbean society and have to live within the tradition and our history and to make it relevant and to go out there. So I think even all of the male-dominated organizations also, whether it's the Lodge, whether it's the Rotary, I think the Rotary have women now, you have to understand that we have an important role to try to do our parts as little as we can in our respective communities to try to reach it, both our males and our females.
Okay, Terence, I'm having you back in here. A crucial issue as well is sometimes, with men being the breadwinners in the family, having to split between being present with their kids and owning the bread. And so the issue of like not spending enough time and not giving enough attention to your kids comes up. Like you as a man who has been, actively on the front of working on many different projects and so on, like what has been some of the strategies you have employed in terms of helping you to find that right balance of being there and being present and loving your kids and, ensuring that there's a roof over their head and there's food in their mouth?
Well, you as a man, you have to find the time. No, you must work. First of all, currently I'm away from my kids. I've been away from them for the last 6 months. I'm in Turks and Caicos Islands, right? So that's a direct experience. But you have to find the time to be with your kids. So work has its place, all right. But you have evenings, you have weekends, you have Saturdays, you have Sundays, and you do things. You try to have activities that will bring the family together. You can invite, other family members, friends, and so to come together. So you have these activities where you can socialize, where you can come together, talk, play games. You go to the beach, you go hiking. There are a number of things that you can do. So while you have to feed your family, you have to work, but you must find the time, make the time. Okay, to have activities, and not just make the time to be home, because you can be home and everybody is in their room looking at television on the telephone, on the tablet. You can be home and everybody's doing their own thing, but you now have to find the activities that will bring you together so that you can spend quality time laughing, talking, playing games, getting to know each other, and not just I'm dad, I'm home, and you watch television, I watch television, and everybody in their own world. That wouldn't work. So you must do things to get people to interact. And so you can cook together. For example, cooking together is one thing that you can do, right? You cooking and everybody is playing their part, peeling something or, making something for the pot. Things like that you can do as a father to bring the family together, because your children will remember those events, those activities, the times that they spend with you, talking and laughing, having fun, going on the beach, playing in the sun. They will remember those things, and then they will pass those things on to their children. So we have, as men, to find the time, okay, to spend with our kids, quality time with them.
Okay, thank you. Guys, time is approaching in terms of, the show. Today's Father's Day as well. We know everyone have their wonderful dinners to go eat soon. For daddy. So we want to get some final thoughts, and we'll start with Omar. Final thoughts on the whole situation of our men, and a hopeful note, like how do we move forward? Like something that maybe our men who's looking at the program right now can maybe hold on to help inspire them to take it to the next level. Unmute your mic, Omar. I think your mic is muted there. Yeah.
All right, definitely. Guys, happy Father's Day once more before we close up. And I feel so alive. I feel so happy today, and achieving what I've achieved so far, and still growing and learning in the process. It's never too late to learn, and I feel fulfilled, even though there's so much more vision and goals I have. I feel fulfilled at this moment that I'm growing and learning and being a part of the change for our society, seeing the young men older men, you know, how they're embracing these changes through these opportunities that we're offering them. And I'm so happy to be part of that change. And to all men, the change starts with us first. We have to want it, we have to desire it, and it starts from within. We have to come to our introspect and begin to make the changes, see what makes us happy, see what makes our community happy. And we need to go back to the very fundamental of love, looking at we're all made equally, men and women. And when we begin to put all these fundamental principles into play and look at humanity, um, the morals, you know, when we begin to teach these things to our kids and to others, our community, our world will become one global community with love and change, and everyone should win and prosper. So I would just like to thank you all from the show that here in Belize we're doing our part, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this talk show this morning. And happy Father's Day to all men in Belize and those in my community. And I continue to fight with you all. It's like what earlier I think Francis said, you know, we need to go back to that where he said that it takes a community to raise a child, you know, or a village to raise a child. And I leave you all with that.
Yeah, thank you, Uma. Aruna, you final message to our men and boys in Grenada and the rest of the world we're looking on right now.
I just want to say Happy Father's Day again to all fathers, and thanks so much for the opportunity. And I really wish we could have more programs like these, you know, more programs, and not just at a particular time, but continuously have these programs, and of course involve men. And I hope that, you know, we can take it to a broader level. Like I said, I do believe young men in the schools, etc., in the communities need to be reached. We need to have these conversations with them. And we just need to start somewhere. So again, my final thought, women, please, let's just remember that men are human too, and they also have emotions and they have needs and feelings. So sometimes we need to be a bit more considerate in our approach, etc. Thanks so much again.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Francis Ross Peters, final thoughts?
Okay, I'd just like to share two examples. I remember, I believe it was 1 year after the Cuban Revolution, the government went on a drive to ensure that illiteracy is stamped out, and I think that they were very successful. In Luanda, in Africa, where they had a genocide where almost 1 million people who were murdered, one tribe against the next, and it was really a very traumatic experience. But now you look at the president who's taken the lead. I think he's there for 3 terms now. Luanda is a model society. You know, we're looking after its people. So I think here political directorate is also very important if we actually have to address a lot of these issues, because in Grenada, there's a lot of poverty, you have a lot of illiteracy, alcoholism, a lot of social ills. So we, as much as we can, I can sit here and talk and have good riches and say the right things, unless you have that involvement of the political director who have a belief system, plus the financing of programs so that we can go out into the communities. I think if we don't have that input, we're going to still continue to be spinning top in mud. But I'm saying here, I'm ready as a cultural activist to go into the highways and byways. I think the Spotlight Initiative is one positive project that I believe it's really implemented and have it on a continuous basis. I think we can make headway. So I'm looking forward with good expectations to continue doing what I'm doing to try to reach our young men and our young women, and trust that we can have a positive outcome in years to come.
Okay, thank you. Terence?
Yes. Well, happy Father's Day to all the fathers who are logged on at this time, right? And my last message here for fathers and men: it's okay to love your children. It's okay to say to them, "I love you," both your boys and your girls, and they're looking forward to that love, and they want to hear it from their dad. They want to feel it from their dad. It's okay to give them the tangible things. It's okay to give them a phone and give them a tablet and things like that. But they want to feel the love from you. So fathers, love your children. Ensure that you let them feel that love from you, and you can say to both your sons and your daughters, I love you. Yeah?
Thank you. That was a very touching message there, Terrence. And for me, it takes me to like my dad. I think I was very fortunate to have a father who really exemplified, being a good father. Tiba Mawuto, wherever you are, happy Father's Day to you. I grew up seeing my dad, demolish all the gender roles, things that we have. He cooked, he washed, he showed me that a man can actually do all those things, and really like led by example. I never saw him hit my mom or abuse her in any way. And so for me, I never saw him like step out in the relationship. I think like as Aruna said, there are the men out there who really are trying, and maybe we need to connect, those who have tried and is improving every day, so they can maybe diffuse those strategies and techniques that they would have used to get to the point. And I think love is at the core, and we send love to each and every father in the world. I mean, Kellan is not with us today. He's enjoying life in Costa Rica. We miss him, but hopefully we have him back with us next week. And so we thank Kellan and the whole Bubb Report team for being willing to do the work, to have these conversations and to continue these conversations. And we hope that the conversations can continue to inspire the different pockets of society to work together. As we said, the schools, the politicians, the arts, like wherever, everyone has a role to play to interface and to create a supportive, safe space for our boys to be nurtured and to grow and to become better. So everyone who tuned into the Bubb Report, we are so happy to have had you with us for the last hour and a half. See you guys next Sunday. Thank you once again to all the guests. Happy Father's Day to you guys, and happy Father's Day to everyone, and love.
My pleasure. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.